Chapter 1. The Christmas I Trusted the Wrong Person. The Christmas my bank froze my card wasn't the night I lost money. It was the night I realized my best friend had access to parts of my life I forgot I gave her. I'm Claire, and for 18 years, I trusted the woman who would quietly rewrite me as unstable, erase me from her perfect Christmas story, and ask me to lie so she could stay flawless. This isn't a story about revenge. It's about the moment I stopped holding everything together and let the truth breathe. I used to believe Christmas was a small pocket of safety, the one week of the year when the world softened around the edges, not because life became easier, but because I knew exactly what it was supposed to look like. A tree that leaned slightly to the left no matter how many times I adjusted it, pine needles scattered across the hallway because my son never remembered to wipe his boots, old ornaments wrapped in tissue paper, chipped at the corners, holding memories that felt steadier than anything in the present. My name is Claire Winslow. I am 42 and I live with my son Owen in a quiet neighborhood just outside Madison, Wisconsin. People hear Wisconsin and imagine snow and kindness and warm kitchens. Sometimes that is true. Most days, it is just life. Bills, schedules, school calendars, and the constant effort of staying composed when a child is watching you learn how to be an adult. I divorced in 2018, not because of infidelity or shouting matches, but because two people can share a house and still feel unbearably alone. Since then, I have lived by routines. I work as an operations and compliance manager for a mid-sized real estate consulting firm. My days are spent making sure other people follow rules they insist they never saw. By the time I get home, I crave quiet, predictability, something solid. Christmas was that for me. It was cocoa for Owen, coffee for me, the same radio station playing the same songs every year, wrapping paper on the floor, tape stuck to my sleeve, telling myself that no matter what else went wrong, I could still give my child one day that felt safe. Sadie Mercer was the only person I ever let close enough to touch that sense of safety. We met in 2007, back when we were both broke and tired and trying to pretend we knew what we were doing. Our friendship formed fast, the kind that does when two women decide to survive adulthood together. 18 years of friendship teaches you how to breathe in sync with someone else. Sadie built a life that looked perfect from the outside. She was 44 now, a lifestyle influencer with brand deals and holiday posts that looked like catalog spreads. Matching pajamas, sponsored cocoa, a husband named Luke, and two smiling kids posed in front of a fireplace that always seemed to glow. She was also the person who sat on my kitchen floor with me the night I signed my divorce papers, the one who brought soup when I was sick, the one who called me her chosen sister. I trusted her enough to give her a spare key to my house, the kind you give someone when you believe the worst thing that could happen is being locked out. The week before Christmas in 2024, Sadie called me late in the afternoon while I was still at my desk. Her voice sounded light, but I could hear strain underneath it. She said she needed a favor, just a small one. She said things had been tense at home and she wanted a few quiet days away to reset her marriage. She asked if she could use my small lake cabin in northern Wisconsin for a handful of days before Christmas. I said yes before she finished asking. I sent her the gate code, the location of the spare key, and a short text confirming the dates. I asked her not to open the back closet where I kept paperwork. I made it sound casual, almost joking, because I did not want to insult her. She thanked me immediately, told me I was a lifesaver, told me I deserved peace. Then she asked one more thing. She said she might have a couple packages arriving while she was gone, gifts she did not want Luke to see. She asked if she could keep an eye on the mail and set anything inside if it arrived while I was out. I said yes again. Trust is not one decision, it is a pattern of small permissions you barely notice giving. 2 days later, I left for a short work trip, one night away. Owen stayed with my mother-in-law, who still called me honey and never said my name like it was a problem. I did not check Sadie's posts. I did not wonder how she was doing. I told myself she was at the cabin, breathing. When I came home on Christmas Eve, the sky was already dark and the air had that sharp cold that makes your nose sting. Owen ran to the door when I opened it, laughing, cheeks red from the cold. He wrapped his arms around me, and for a moment my whole body loosened. This was the point. This was why I held everything together. We put on music, we heated leftover soup, I laid out wrapping paper on the living room rug. Owen bounced between the tree and the couch like he was made of springs. I watched him, letting myself sink into the ordinary joy of it. Then my phone rang. The number belonged to my bank. A man named Evan Pierce introduced himself from the fraud prevention department. His voice was polite, calm, practiced. He explained that my primary debit card and one credit line had been placed on a temporary hold due to a chargeback tied to a shipping vendor. 24 to 48 hours depending on verification. A precaution. I stepped into the kitchen so Owen would not hear the tension in my voice. I asked what chargeback. Evan explained that 2 recent transactions were flagged, connected to a delivery address associated with my profile. The system noticed an update to the payment method made by an authorized user. Authorized user. I logged into my email while we were still on the call. There it was, a notification from an old delivery scheduling platform I hadn't used in years. Payment method updated. Authorized user activity confirmed. The timestamp was 3 days earlier. My chest tightened. I ended the call and stared at my kitchen counter covered in crumbs and tape and wrapping paper. Everything looked suddenly fragile. I sat on the couch with my laptop balanced on my knees. Owen was humming to himself, blissfully unaware. I searched the account history and remembered exactly when I had added Sadie as an authorized user, years ago when we coordinated parties and bulk orders for our kids. It seemed harmless. Then life changed and I forgot. I typed her carefully, keeping my tone light. I asked if she might have ordered something through an old account by mistake. I mentioned the bank hold. Her response came immediately. She apologized, said she must have clicked the wrong account while ordering a surprise gift for Luke, said she would fix it right away, said not to worry. The message was perfect. Too perfect. I typed back a simple thanks and put my phone down. When Owen asked if we could still get cinnamon rolls the next morning like we always did, I smiled and said yes. Later that night, after he went upstairs, I sat alone in the glow of the tree and replayed small details I never questioned. How Sadie always seemed to know my billing cycles, how she could reference numbers I barely remembered seeing, how she once joked about my security questions like she already knew the answers. I told myself it meant nothing, that 18 years of friendship explained familiarity, that I was tired and reading into things. But the house felt different. The silence between songs felt heavier, and beneath everything I was trying to keep normal, a quiet question began to form. Was I trusting her because she was trustworthy, or because I needed someone to be? Outside, snow began to fall again, soft and steady against the window. I watched it for a long time, listening to Owen's footsteps upstairs, and told myself to let it go, just for one night, just until morning. Chapter 2. When betrayal didn't look like hate. By the time January settled in, the decorations were still up, but the warmth had drained out of them. The trees stayed lit because Owen liked it that way, but the room no longer felt protected by it. It felt watched. The bank hold cleared, quietly, without apology. Life moved on the way it always does, pretending nothing unusual had happened. But something around me had shifted, subtle enough that I almost convinced myself it was my imagination. Almost. Text messages from people I used to hear from every week grew shorter. Replies came later, if they came at all. A neighbor who normally waved from her porch glanced away when I walked past. A coffee invite that usually appeared on my phone every Friday never arrived. I told myself it was winter. People were tired. People were busy. That story worked until it didn't. One morning, after dropping Owen off at school, a woman I recognized from the parent volunteer group slowed beside me in the hallway. She smiled in a way that felt practiced. "You doing okay, Claire?" The tone caught me off guard. We were not close enough for that softness. "I'm fine," I said. "Why?" She hesitated, then glanced toward the classroom door. "I just heard you've had a lot going on. I hope you're taking care of yourself." There it was, not a question, a confirmation of something she already believed. "I am," I said, keeping my voice steady. She nodded and walked away, leaving a heat in my chest that didn't fade. In the car, Owen buckled himself in and stared out the window. "Mom," he said, "why was that lady talking like you're sick?" I forced a small smile. "She was just being kind," I said. "Nothing to worry about." But my hands tightened on the steering wheel. That afternoon, my ex-husband called. His name is Mark, and even years after our divorce, he still spoke carefully, like my emotions were something that could crack if handled wrong. "I just wanted to check in," he said. "About what?" I asked. A pause. "About Owen. He said you've been stressed lately. I want to make sure everything is stable." Stable. The word landed heavy. "I'm fine," I said. "Why are you asking?" Another pause, longer this time. "Sadie mentioned you've had some financial stuff come up. She said you've been overwhelmed." The room went quiet around me. "She talked to you?" I said. "She ran into him," he replied. "She was just worried. She said you've been anxious and controlling lately, that you might be having a hard time coping." Controlling, anxious, words chosen carefully, wrapped in concern. "The only financial issue I had," I said, "was a bank hold caused by her using an old account of mine." He went silent. "She didn't mention that," he said finally. Of course she hadn't. I ended the call politely and stood in my kitchen staring at the counter like it might explain how my private life had become a shared narrative without my consent. That evening, Sadie called. Her voice was warm, familiar, the same tone she used in her holiday videos. "Hey," she said, "you've been kind of quiet. I just wanted to check on you." I kept my voice neutral. "Mark told me you talked to him." A soft laugh, light, harmless. "I ran into him," she said. "I might have mentioned you seemed stressed. I was just being honest." "Why would you describe me as unstable?" I asked. She sounded genuinely hurt. "I didn't say unstable," she said. "I said stressed. Claire, you are stressed. You're reading into everything. You're seeing threats where there aren't any." There it was, the gentle correction. "I'm not imagining a bank hold. I'm not imagining you still having access to my account." She sighed, like I was exhausting her. "I told you it was a mistake," she said. "I fixed it. I don't know what else you want. Maybe you should talk to someone. You've been through a lot. Trauma can do this to people." The word trauma slid into the conversation like it belonged there. "Don't do that," I said quietly. "Don't turn this into a mental health issue." "I'm trying to help," she replied, "but you're scaring people. You're scaring yourself." Scaring people. That was the point. If she could frame me as unstable, anything she said next would sound responsible. I ended the call calmly and told Owen I was tired when he asked what was wrong. That night, sleep didn't come easily. 2 days later, the voicemail arrived. I was at work, stepping out of a meeting when I checked my phone. I expected a client or a reminder. Instead, Sadie's voice filled my ear, light and amused. She wasn't talking to me. "Christmas is perfect for cleaning up old stories," she said, laughing softly.
She'll doubt herself before she ever doubts me. My stomach dropped. She kept talking, complaining about pressure from her team, about numbers needing to look clean, about shipping costs and vendors that didn't match. She mentioned Lily Brooks, her PR manager, sounding irritated. They're asking too many questions. I just need everything tidy before the next campaign. The message cut off. I stood in the hallway of my office, staring at the wall, my heart pounding once hard, then settling into something colder. There was no anger, no disbelief, just understanding. She wasn't angry with me. Hate would have been obvious. Hate would have been messy. This was controlled. I thought about every time I had softened my instincts to keep peace, every time I had apologized first, every time I had assumed the best because it felt safer than being alone. I set my phone down and sat in the quiet living room, the streetlights still glowing even though Christmas had passed. For the first time, I didn't reach for Sadie. I didn't ask her to explain. I didn't ask her to love me better. I stopped engaging emotionally. Instead, I started paying attention. I noticed how carefully she spoke, how she planted concern instead of accusations, how she positioned herself as the reasonable one while I was framed as fragile. It wasn't hatred, it was replacement. She wanted me gone from the picture without anyone noticing I had been removed. I turned off the tree lights and sat in there in the quiet, like enough to my breathing to steady, and made myself a quiet promise. I would stop asking for reassurance from the person quietly rearranging my life. I would start watching instead.
Chapter 3. I stopped asking questions and started documenting. Clarity did not arrive all at once. It arrived in small clicks, like doors locking behind me as I walked forward. The morning after I stopped responding to Sadie, I opened my laptop before I made coffee, not because I felt brave, but because I felt done. Done guessing, done explaining, done pretending that intention mattered more than impact. I created a folder on my desktop and named it January. Inside it, I made smaller folders: email, bank, delivery, voicemail, screenshots. It felt cold and methodical, the same part of my brain I used at work when something stopped making sense. If Sadie wanted to turn me into a rumor, I was going to turn her actions into a record. I went to work like nothing had changed. I answered emails, I sat through meetings, I smiled when people asked how my holidays were. But underneath it all, something fundamental had shifted. I was no longer listening for reassurance. I was listening for facts. At lunch, I called the bank again. Evan Pierce answered, his voice steady and professional. "I need the case number tied to the fraud hold from Christmas Eve," I said. There was a brief pause, keys clicking. "I can provide that," he said. "Is there an ongoing issue?" "The hold cleared," I said. "I need the documentation." He did not question it. He read back the reference number, the merchant name, the timestamps. He confirmed that the payment update had been made by an authorized user and that the delivery address matched information stored on a linked profile. I wrote everything down, even though it was already in my inbox. Hearing it aloud made it real in a way screenshots never fully do. That evening, while Owen worked on homework at the kitchen table, I logged back into the old delivery platform. Sadie's email was still listed under authorized users, like she belonged there. I removed her access and saved the confirmation page. Then I changed the password, updated the security questions, and enabled additional verification. It was not dramatic, just clicks, quiet ones. As I kept digging, a pattern emerged. Vendor receipts tied to photo shoots, shipping charges, rental equipment. Nothing that screamed fraud on its own, but enough to tell a story if someone wanted to. My name appeared as a reference contact on one vendor form. My address appeared on 2 invoices as a secondary delivery location. I stared at the screen and felt a slow, heavy understanding settle in. Years ago, when Sadie's brand first started growing, she asked if she could list me as an emergency contact. She said it was temporary.
She asked if she could ship things to my house sometime so her kids wouldn't see surprises. I had said yes without hesitation. Trust is not one mistake, it is a trail. By the end of the week, the numbers added up to something uncomfortable. Not debt in my name, but exposure. 60,000 here, another 80 there, fees, chargebacks, potential liability that ballooned toward $180,000 if the wrong person decided I was involved. I wasn't panicking. I was focusing. I called Thomas Reed, a forensic accountant I had worked with once on a compliance issue. He agreed to meet for coffee near my office. Thomas listened without interrupting as I laid everything out. He flipped through the receipts, studied the timelines, nodded slowly. "This isn't about the money," he said finally. I looked up. "It isn't?" He tapped the stack of papers lightly. "The danger is the narrative," he said. "If she can make it look like you were part of this, even passively, then you become unreliable. That sticks. People remember suspicion longer than they remember corrections." I felt something tighten in my chest. "She's already telling people I'm unstable," I said. Thomas did not look surprised. "Then you need to be boring," he said. "Document everything. Case numbers, dates, no emotional communication, facts only. That's how you protect yourself when someone is trying to turn concern into a weapon." Later that day, I spoke to Marissa Klein, an attorney recommended by a colleague. Her voice was calm, unhurried. "Tell me what you want," she said. "I want my name off anything she can touch, and I don't want this to turn into a public mess." "Then we keep it clean," she replied. "Remove access through proper channels, send written notices that are factual and polite. Do not threaten, do not post, do not defend yourself to mutual friends. If she's building a story about your emotions, don't feed it." That night, Sadie sent a long message. She wrote that she loved me, that she was worried, that I was spiraling, that she had talked to a few people because she thought I needed support. Then she wrote the line that made my stomach drop. "If you keep going like this, people are going to think you need help. I'm trying to protect you." I read it twice, then I saved it. I didn't respond. Instead, I drafted a short notice, polite, factual. I informed her that I had removed her access from all shared accounts and that she was no longer authorized to use my name, address, or contact information for any purpose. No accusations, no emotion. I did not send it yet. Timing mattered. Over the next few days, I continued documenting. I requested written confirmations. I pulled my credit report. I saved every email, every text, every voicemail. And slowly, something shifted again. Sadie's messages became shorter, more cautious. The confidence drained out of them. I realized then that her perfect life depended on no one looking too closely, on everyone accepting the version she offered without asking for receipts. I wasn't going to expose her. I was just going to stop covering for her. One evening, as I was wiping down the counter, Owen hovered in the doorway longer than usual. "Mom," he said. I knelt down so we were eye level. "We will be okay," I said. "I promise." He nodded, satisfied with that answer, and went back to his room. After he fell asleep, I sent the notice. Then I closed my laptop. For the first time since Christmas, my shoulders dropped. I wasn't angry. I wasn't vindictive. I was prepared. And for the first time since all of this began, that felt enough.
Chapter 4. I let her have the perfect Christmas. Enough did not mean safe. It meant quiet. And quiet, I was learning, could be powerful. On the outside, nothing about my behavior changed. I showed up to work in Madison every morning with my hair brushed and my badge clipped to my coat. I answered emails, I reviewed reports, I followed process. At home, I cooked dinner, helped Owen with homework, and listened to him complain about school like his world was not quietly rearranging itself around mine. I even mailed a small package to Sadie's house in early February, a children's book for her kids, something neutral and harmless. I wrote a short note wishing them a Happy New Year. No explanations, no warmth,
no coldness either. Politeness is disarming when someone expects chaos. Inside, though, the door was closed. I no longer volunteered reassurance. I no longer softened facts to protect her feelings. I did not check her social media. I did not defend myself to people who asked vague questions. I let silence do the work. And the system responded. Lily Brooks, Sadie's PR manager, reached out to my attorney first. A routine request, professionally worded, asking for confirmation related to vendor invoices and shipping records connected to Sadie Mercer Media. They were reconciling discrepancies, chargebacks, mismatched delivery addresses, costs that did not align with reported campaigns. At the same time, my bank called again, not alarmed, just thorough. A different representative this time, confirming that the authorized user had been removed and that related disputes were now being reviewed under a broader merchant inquiry. Nothing dramatic, just process. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Luke had started receiving mail he did not recognize, invoices, vendor notices, letters that did not fit the story he thought he was living in. Sadie had brushed him off, according to the story, said it was work stress, temporary confusion, nothing to worry about. But worry has a way of noticing patterns before people do. Sadie called me one afternoon while I was still at my desk. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hey," I said. Her voice sounded different, still controlled, but thinner, tired. "Claire, thank you for picking up," she said. "I was hoping we could talk." "I'm listening," I said. She inhaled. "There's been some confusion with my bank and a couple of brands. They're asking questions that don't really make sense. I think it's just because everything got mixed up over the holidays." I waited. She continued. "I just need you to confirm something for me if they reach out, just that you were aware of some shipments, that everything was fine." I felt a familiar ache press against my ribs. The old instinct to smooth things over rose up, almost automatically. Almost. "I'm not going to do that," I said. There was a pause, longer than usual. "Claire," she said carefully, "I'm not asking you to lie. I'm asking you to clarify." "Clarify what?" I asked. "That you gave permission," she said. "You did, in the past. This is just an extension of that." I glanced out the window at the frozen parking lot below. Cars lined up neatly, every one of them where it belonged. I gave permission years ago, not now, not for business use. Her voice tightened. "You're really going to let this spiral? After everything I've done for you?" There it was, the debt she believed I owed. "I'm not doing anything to you. I'm just not fixing this for you." She exhaled sharply. "Can we meet in person, please?" I agreed to a public place, a cafe near the shopping center, busy enough that no one could raise their voice without being noticed. She was already there when I arrived. Her posture was perfect, but the polish could not hide the exhaustion. Dark circles under her eyes, fingers wrapped tightly around her cup. She smiled when she saw me. It did not reach her eyes. "Thank you for coming," she said. I sat across from her and folded my hands in my lap. "What did you want to say?" I asked. She leaned forward. "I need your help," she said quietly. "If you talk to the bank, if you confirm a few things, this all stops. The brands calm down, Luke calms down, everyone moves on." I looked at her face, really looked. This was not panic. This was calculation wrapped in desperation. "What exactly would you want me to confirm?" I asked. She hesitated, then spoke faster. "That you authorized the shipments, that the address was used with permission, that the charges weren't an issue." "And if I do that," I asked, "what does it make me?" She blinked. "It makes you a friend," she said, "like you've always been." I felt something settle in my chest, heavy, final. "I can't be the reason your story looks clean," I said, "not anymore." Her smile faltered. For a brief second, something colder flashed across her face. "You know I could say things about you," she said softly. I held her gaze. "Yes, I know," I said. The silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. "I've been there for you for 18 years," she said, her voice rising just slightly. "Are you really going to abandon me now?" "I'm not abandoning you. I'm just choosing not to lie." She exhaled sharply. "You always think you're better than me," she said. I shook my head once. "I think I have to be better to myself," I said. I stood up before the conversation could spiral into something she could use later. I did not raise my voice. I did not explain further. I simply walked away. Outside, the cold air hit my face like a reset. My hands trembled slightly as I unlocked my car, not from fear, but from the release of holding my ground. There was no rush of victory, no satisfaction, just a deep, bone-level tiredness. That evening, I cooked dinner while Owen talked about his day. A math test, a kid who kept stealing pencils. Small problems, safe problems. As I listened, something occurred to me that stopped me mid-step. I had not apologized, not once, not for my tone, not for my boundaries, not for making someone uncomfortable by telling the truth. I sat down at the table across from my son and smiled at him. For the first time in a long time, the quiet in my house did not feel like something waiting to break. It felt like space. And because I stopped holding it together.
Chapter 5. I didn't destroy her life. I stopped holding it together. The truth was, I did not stop holding it together out of anger. I stopped because my hands were tired. Once I stepped back, the consequences did not arrive all at once. They arrived the way real life usually does, quietly, in pieces. Sadie's online presence changed first. Not dramatically, just small gaps where certainty used to be. Posts became less frequent, stories disappeared before anyone could ask questions, comments went unanswered. Then came a vague message about taking time to focus on family and privacy during a challenging season. I recognized it for what it was, a curtain being drawn. A week later, I heard through someone in local marketing that one of her largest brand partners had paused deliverables. Nothing accusatory, just process, reviewing vendor discrepancies, reconciling shipping records, waiting for clarity before moving forward. Her husband Luke stopped appearing beside her in photos, then stopped appearing at all. The perfect picture did not shatter, it thinned, and when something depends on being flawless, thinning is enough. My attorney called one afternoon as I was leaving the office. "The bank has closed the dispute review," Marissa said. "They confirmed you were not an authorized participant in the vendor contracts under review. Your file is clean." I sat in my car with the engine off, my hands resting on the steering wheel. "So that's it?" I said. "That's it," she replied. "You did exactly what you needed to do." When I got home, Owen was at the counter eating cereal for dinner without asking permission. He looked up at me with a grin. "Coach says I might start next week," he said. "That's great," I said, and meant it. For the first time in months, the tightness in my chest did not follow me into the evening. 3 days later, Sadie texted, "Can we meet one last time, please?" I did not answer right away. I forwarded the message to Marissa, then sat with it until the house grew quiet. One last time felt dangerous. It also felt final. I agreed to meet in a public place, a small diner on the edge of town, familiar enough to feel neutral, safe, visible. Sadie arrived early. She sat with her hands folded on the table like she was trying to look composed. Her hair was brushed, her makeup was done, but exhaustion clung to her in a way filters could not hide. When she saw me, she stood quickly. "Claire," she said, "thank you for coming." I slid into the booth across from her. I did not hug her. "What did you want to say?" I asked.
She inhaled slowly. Things got complicated, she said. The bank, the brands, Luke, everyone is acting like I did something unforgivable. I met her eyes. Did you? I asked. She flinched, then looked down. I was trying to keep everything together, she said. You know how much pressure I'm under. There it was again. Together, like a sacred word. You asked me to lie, I said. You asked me to be your proof. Her eyes filled, and for a moment I thought she might finally say the thing that mattered. Instead, she whispered, "Can you just not let it be true?" The sentence landed harder than any accusation. She was not asking for forgiveness, she was asking me to keep carrying it for her. I didn't make this happen. I just stopped holding it together, I said quietly. Her breath caught. She pressed her fingers to her temple. You know people listen to you, she said. You could tell them it was a misunderstanding. I won't trade my name for your comfort, I said. She looked at me like she was seeing a stranger. You're doing this because you're jealous. You always judged me. I did not react. I let the words sit where they fell. I'm doing this because I'm done apologizing for noticing the truth. For the first time, something in her posture collapsed, not dramatically, just enough to be real. I was scared. I waited. Scared they'd see I'm not enough, scared I'd lose everything if I stopped being perfect. She swallowed. And I needed someone lower than me so I could feel safe. That sentence felt like a small funeral, not for her life, for our friendship. I hope you get help, real help, not the kind that comes from pushing someone else down. She nodded once. There was no apology speech, no redemption, just the quiet end of something that used to feel like home. When I left the diner, the air was cold and clean. I sat in my car for a moment and let the grief move through me. Not grief for her perfect life, grief for the years I thought we were standing side by side. That weekend, I finished the clean exit. Marissa helped me send final written notices, all permissions revoked, all accounts closed, all records saved. A brief cease and desist to prevent further contact with my employer or my child's school. Not punishment, protection. Everything was documented, everything was calm. It was over. On Sunday night, Owen asked if we could make grilled cheese and tomato soup, a simple request, a child asking for comfort without knowing the word for it. I stood at the stove while the bread browned. Owen talked about basketball tryouts and a kid who kept stealing pencils. Ordinary things filled the kitchen like warmth. After dinner, he carried his plate to the sink without being asked. Then he paused. "Mom, are we okay now?" I looked at him and felt the truth settle in my chest. We're okay. Better than okay. Later, when the house was quiet, I sat on the edge of my bed and let myself feel everything I had postponed, the anger I never released, the sadness I didn't want to admit, the relief of no longer carrying someone else's lies. I didn't win. I didn't celebrate. I didn't watch her life fall apart with satisfaction. I just breathed again. And if you have ever been the person who keeps everything from collapsing, the one who smooths things over so everyone else can look fine, I want to ask you something. What would happen if you stopped holding it together for people who never held you? If this story felt familiar, share what boundary you wish you had set sooner or what finally made you choose yourself. And if you want more stories like this, the kind that choose proof over rage, stay here with me.